All right. Welcome to the Serve Conscious podcast. I am here with a good friend, Clifton Carmody, and a mindful service and leader champion extraordinaire. And we're going to talk about all things mindful service and leadership and today's particularly unique landscape in the hospitality industry as well and how to navigate that. So, I'm so excited to have Clifton here. How are you today, Clifton?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for letting me be here today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. And I know you're very busy in your cozy setting in the Colorado Buddhist Center, where you're not just I guess uh, managing the business there, but also a mindful leadership coach to so many organizations.
Yes, individuals, mostly individuals these days. Th- this whole COVID situation has kind of, affected a few businesses. But yes, I am in a beautiful spot in the middle of the mountains. I love it. So good for those of us who like quiet. So.
Absolutely. You've chosen that life. And so I remember us talking and you said quarantine life didn't change things that much for you since you were already in a kind of isolated setting that was already monastery like. Everyone else is just kind of forced into monastic living.
Yes, I had chosen it. We do this once weekly town trip for groceries or whatever, and it was and sometimes it might not be for 2 weeks, so you could really see the difference with the mass and the little spots on the floors, 6 feet distancing and the signs and the plexiglass going up. It would just kind of get bigger and bigger all the time. It was very dramatic. So, yeah, it's a pretty simple lifestyle living out in the middle of nowhere.
Right. It's nice to be able to just check in once in a while, like, oh, that's what real life is like. Okay, back to my back to my cocoon.
Yes, yes.
So I want to start by talking about your background, since it's a very interesting and inspiring story. What led you, I guess, from a life of hospitality-oriented service to where you are today as a mindful leadership coach?
I started off, I worked for Morton's Restaurant Group. I was the youngest GM for one of their fine dining Italian restaurants. And I was very driven when I was younger, really driven, just work, work, work. And I was very task oriented and not people oriented. And the type of person, I was the GM who somebody was 2 minutes late to a pre-shift and it was their third time they were late. I was like, okay, you need to step outside. Everyone knew I was going to fire this guy. That's the, 2 minutes late in Southern California traffic. That's just almost unreasonable. But I was very task oriented and I was very, accomplished. But there was this one defining moment that I kind of slammed my hand down on a table and, scared my two girls. And, I was trying to make a point and they start crying. And, my wife at the time gives me a look like, oh, you're a real big man. And as it turns out, I realized, I gotta knock this off. I can't be this type of person. This, the hard driving. I get my way all the time. And so I ended up getting into meditation. And so for about the last 20 plus years, I've been working in retreat centers or volunteering at centers. I started a Buddhist center, whatever the case might be. That was going on while I was also working in the industry. And I worked in hotels and restaurants, James Beard award-winning chefs, boutique hotel groups. I've been successful in my career, but I think I was more successful because I changed my leadership style. One of the places that I worked was the Dalai Lama's Brother Center in Bloomington. I was on the management board there. I was volunteering there, and and there was an opportunity where the Dalai Lama, about every 2 years, he would come and we'd have a small group of volunteers that worked there, and he would give us little talks. And there was this one moment where I lamented that, oh, I wasn't a monk. I had my little baby daughter, it was like, I don't know, 2 years old in my arms or whatever. And I was like, well, I'm a family guy, but I really wish I could get more into my meditation and he said, we don't need more monks. We just need people in business that are good people. And that always stuck with me. Like that stuck with me. That was 20 years ago. And I thought about that. And I've always thought about that. And then as I started coaching, it was a natural fit because I realized there were a lot of people out there that really wanted to do the right thing and really wanted to, uh, be good people. They wanted to be good people, and but they just, they forget essentially, right? So that's it. They're just they go into a meeting and they really want to be a good person, but then they have this little part, their ego part, that has to lash out and do things, and then they walk away and they go, "Why did I do that?" Right? So I think I realized when I started teaching this and coaching this to some people, my early coaching clients, at that point I realized that it was needed. I think as a coach, you believe that people fundamentally are whole, and your job is to kind of take away the problem. You don't solve the problems. You take away you just take away the idea that there is the problem, and you allow that person to bloom. So that's kind of how that was the metamorphosis essentially. So
Yeah, really, really powerful journey, and I could definitely relate to a lot of those like key points that you mentioned of like of realization and saying, "Ah, I see, this is where my energy can go." And I want to first actually rewind to when you began to bring meditation into your life, and mindful practices, and you were in a leadership position. What did you start to notice like change in terms of these realizations you made of like, aha, this is effective leadership. This is truly something that will bear fruit, as opposed to the usual methods I used that might have been more, um, you know, how we how we usually do it. I don't have to even put words to it from
right,
my own experience, because I know exactly what you're saying, of just like the hostile, critical, um, you know,
fear-based management style. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, whatever you want to call it. I was a champion of that as well. I don't even know why when I think back, but I just felt the need to do it because that's how I was conditioned. So yeah, what did you? Long story short, long question short. Well, how
Okay.
did meditation and mindfulness change all of that? What was all very 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 simple in terms of what you needed to do?
The immediacy was I found myself more empathetic to people as I started meditating. I realized I was more curious. I was more empathetic. I understood things. So, like I told you earlier, with the one gentleman that I fired for being 2 minutes late, like I was so strict, I actually went all the way to the other extreme. And I ended up like allowing more. So I really went from this super high performing, all these numbers, super, super high performing, to, very mediocre at first. And I threw the baby out with the bathwater. I didn't need to be someone who would fire someone for being 2 minutes late, but I needed to hold people accountable on the other end. And as I developed this compassion and I was really trying to soften up, I actually went too far. And then I realized that is equally dangerous, because we all know, we've all worked in environments. We all know what it's like to have, if we're both restaurant people, when when it's crazy, you want people that are there. You want people that show up for their shift. You want people that are, they didn't have a drink between shifts or whatever the case might be. You want high performing people. And what happens is if you don't have a little bit of discipline on the ship, right? If the captain doesn't have a little discipline on the ship, there'll be the mutiny. And in my business, mutiny was the best servers started going elsewhere, or the best cooks, or whatever the case might be, the best managers. So that was the most immediate thing that happened. And over the course of the first year, 18 months, I realized, okay, that's not working. And so I ended up just finding a nice, happy medium. And I realized it doesn't matter how much of a hard ass you are, you still are going to have people that, kind of screw you over. But if you are somebody that is, if you're a good leader, and basically when I say a good leader, I mean a good person. Like if you're a good person, you're still going to have those people in your life. I think you just have less of them. And I also think that people have more of an allegiance towards you. I think that that turns into it's like a feather in your cap. People feel comfortable with you. People, when you call them up, you say, "Oh, I really need you to work this shift," or whatever the case might be. They're there. They get their uniform on and they're right there. So that's how I realized. And then the proof was in the pudding. That was actually when my career took off, and I went from being a GM into a director. So
Wow. Yeah, I think about like that swinging pendulum. I did the same thing. I went from like super intense and reactive, sometimes cruel, to seeing all of that as like, oh no, that's been like causing my all the problems in my life. Let's get rid of all of that, including any amount of firmness that could be effective, and actually including caring about a lot of stuff that was actually really important. And places that I've worked, and I've worked at loosey goosey places before, but not like, I guess you can say like mindfully loosey goosey, just careless, right?
uh-huh.
And they would just kind of let everyone do whatever they wanted, and I had a sense that like, okay, fine, they don't care if we screw up and they're not going to punish us, but they also don't care if we succeed either. And from that comes even a deeper lack. It's like I kind of actually longed for people being hard on me because actually it would actually mean my efforts were acknowledged, when I actually succeeded.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. I think that's you don't want to get into a case where it's just like I don't care. The idea is you still want to keep your eye on the prize, so to speak. You still want to be driven in that way, but you also just you don't want to do it at the expense of people. You want everybody to rise up, and you care about everybody. And it's not just. I think that's the difference right now with this movement towards conscious business, which I am a big proponent of. So in the past, it was always been profits. That's who the everybody had to deal with the shareholders who cared only about profits, and even legally that was something that was the only thing a business had to worry about, which meant the environment, their purveyors, their employees, those weren't important. It was just the bottom line was the bottom line. These days, we have not only the profit aspect, but we have the three P's: the profit, the people, and the planet. So there's some of these conscious businesses, B Corps. Larry Fink, who's one of the biggest mutual fund, $7 trillion worth of holdings, actually sent something out a couple of years ago to all the CEOs saying, no longer is profit the only margin we're going to be judging you on. You also need to take care of the planet. You also need to take care of your people. So I think that's just I think this is a paradigm shift that's going on all over the world. And I don't want to get too woo woo, but it's that whole kind of weird age of Aquarius, like we're all kind of changing, hippie or whatever the case might be. I don't know. I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's the way the millennials are. I don't know any of this stuff, but you can see it happening, and I think people actually care.
Yeah, and like I mean on purely like pragmatic terms, as our quality of life goes up and as we're beginning to shake off the sort of conditioning of the industrial revolution and becoming human beings again in the
Uh huh.
workplace and in the business sphere, I just feel like it's just viewed as just more effective for building like a total world, a
Huh.
totally good world to live in, workplace, lifestyle, everything. These human elements have to be considered, and they just weren't before because I think we were just too immature and infantile in how we looked at business and production. And that was how service ran. Service for so long had run by industrial revolution standards, and human beings were cogs and wheels. And now clearly it's just no longer as effective. Like, okay, we got things going, we got the machine working, but now it has to work for everybody. And at the end of the day, I mean, maybe you'd agree that a service oriented company that's human and humanitarian is going to be profitable, maybe even more profitable and more effective in that regard.
Yes, actually, it's first, it was my personal experience. I realized that when you started actually caring about people, people actually cared about you back, right? So they would understand that, if there's some big event, all of a sudden you want to help the cause, you want to, and as far as conscious business goes, there's been a ton of studies out that show that socially responsible companies are actually putting more profit to the bottom line, which is antithetical, right? So you'd think that, okay, hold it. If I spend more money on my employees, if I take care of my employees, if I try not to, if I cut a deal, win-win deal with my purveyors, um, that actually is going to lower my profits. But there is this magic that happens, and everybody comes out a winner. So this is something that it, I believe this is just people are going to see this, and it's going to start blooming. It's going to start mushrooming, and we're just at the tip of the iceberg here on how to go from this fear-based management style to a little more enlightened leadership style.
Definitely. And I think I'm hoping that this starts to trickle down into service-based companies too that maybe wouldn't normally get this kind of love. We think about the restaurant industry, the hospitality industry, and also maybe like, these giant, like thrumming call centers too that are basically the air we breathe now in customer service whenever we need something from a company. Some of them are still have this sweatshop mentality and aren't really at all foregrounding like culture and well-being of employees. So like what are some of the things that you think these companies can start to do that will be not only effective but also lead to greater joy of service and showing up to work rather than it just being this depleting experience?
I believe that we're moving to a little less hierarchical and patriarchal style management system to a little flatter. I think we're talking about Tony Hsieh and his management style at Zappos. Um, I think what ends up happening, what makes that organization better is by having that. Nobody knows all the answers. We live in such a dynamic time. Technology changes, philosophy styles, management leadership philosophy styles change. There's so much going on. It, it's really best if the leader knows that the leader doesn't know, right? Like he doesn't know everything. So just sit down with your team, find out from your team. There's got to be an element of trust in that. Now, that doesn't mean you abdicate all your responsibility as a leader, but if you take all your call center employees and you say, hey, how can we get these scores up? How can people feel better? Like what is it that we need to do? Well, guess what? They're on the phone all the time. They know exactly what the customer wants. They know exactly what they wish they could give the customer. And so it just needs to be kind of this reversal where you allow people to rise up and you take their opinions and you create safe spaces. As a leader, you want to walk into a situation, humble and curious. You don't know all the answers, so you're asking for help. And when you do that, I think you've got to be prepared to help. You've got to be prepared with your own answers as a leader. You've got to be prepared, but don't don't assume you have the best answer. Just be humble and curious and let your ego down a little bit and then put your employees up and hear what they have to say and be there as a support. I think the new leadership paradigm is, it's it's about supporting them and how do you learn to support them? And usually the best way to support them, they know. So just listen.
Yeah, and it sounds so simple, but I think if any leader reflects, most of them anyway, they might see that they actually uh, are mainly looking at their frontline employees as outlets for their protocols rather than as like inlets of intel. Like of information they've gathered, of wisdom they've gathered from being actually in the fray. And so many places I've worked, the only questions management would ask me are accusatory ones of like, why did you F that up? Rather than, hey, like, what have you learned? Like, how can we improve things? And I think that's another. I mean, we're talking about like people feeling happy and fulfilled at work if their company cares. I imagine if their company cares about what they might think about like the whole job they're doing and how things can be improved, that might actually do a lot for well-being.
Oh, most definitely. You know, we talked about fear-based. You do something wrong, why'd you F that up? You know, whatever. So that's one side of the equation. And that sets people into a defensive posture. And it's not just a defensive posture, you know, for the employee, but for the manager too, because now the manager has, they've got to set up, they've got to be able to argue their point to the server. So everybody's sitting around in this defensive, offensive, blaming, pointing fingers, rather than just saying, okay, what can we do to solve this problem? Let's just fix it, and we'll figure out how to make things better later. And let's be honest. And if the server can come up and say, "Well, I took too many tables, or it was my mistake," if that server can do that honestly in a situation where it was the server, then we can get to the bottom of things faster. Whereas if the server has to say, "Well, it was the cook and it was this person," and start pointing fingers, then you're on a wild goose chase trying to figure out what the problem is. But if everybody's honest and can just kind of own up to their mistakes without a sense of this immediate reprisal from the management, I think that's what's going to just make the workplaces feel better. You can be more yourself, you can be more whole at work. Work shouldn't kill you. Work shouldn't be one of those places where, oh my God, I got to go work, and then it depletes you as a person. Work's this wonderful place where we have an opportunity to serve other people and really grow as human beings.
Have you found that when there isn't as much of like a punitive relationship to mistakes, like, okay, like when something goes wrong, we're going to find out who to blame and then they're going to experience these consequences. When you remove that, do you actually find maybe mistakes go down, or at least how mistakes are handled by the employees is improved, or both?
Uh, Absolutely. In my experience, yes, I have seen this. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be people that you work shoulder to shoulder with that just don't care. And that is the role of management to see that. I've terminated a lot of people that didn't really follow things, right? They didn't really follow whatever they were supposed to be doing. And I don't fire people willy nilly anymore. Usually let people go because they really don't want to be there. And so as a manager, you have to separate those challenges away from people that just make honest mistakes that happen in the course of any particular workday. You're supposed to put the widget together like this, and then somebody makes a mistake. It's okay. Let's figure out what caused that mistake and get it fixed. The only reason mistakes happen, not the only reason mistakes happen, but the only thing from the management side, the way we used to look at things, I think, was people either don't know or they don't care, right? And so if people don't know, right, those are the type of people that you want to train, you want to coach better, you want to find the solution to the problem. If people just don't care, there's nothing you can do. You can try to implore them to care more, you can try and teach them why they should care more, but ultimately it comes down to the person and their own integrity.
I want to get deeper into that, but I feel like we've been talking so much before the discussion went live about the realities today that everyone's facing and all of these like struggles in the world of restaurants and hospitality. I think a lot of us would love to even experience, but we can't because of the economic realities of restaurants not functioning, being closed, shutting down, and kind of people feeling. Uh, Astray or a ship without a rudder. How can we, as hospitality professionals and leaders, find a sort of beacon of hope amidst all of these really ominous outlooks for the restaurant and hospitality industry.
Uh, I had some of my clients come to me and this was one of the problems. In the beginning of the pandemic, things started happening rather quickly and they didn't know what to do. They couldn't operate as normal, whatever. I just had a few things, 5 or 6 things. It was like, one, you need to communicate to everybody. You need to communicate to everyone. Look, this is the problem. Like this is the problem. The sales are down. This is that, and then you've got to be vulnerable. This is the problem, and right now I don't know what the solution is. I'm not going. I don't know the path coronavirus is going to take. Right. And when you're being honest like that and you're being vulnerable, it gives you an opportunity to be curious. So, because you don't know all the answers. And if you don't know all the answers, then it really leaves you open to hearing what some possibilities are. So, it gives us an opportunity to show compassion. So here we are in this state where um, all this craziness is going on. And I just read this morning, there was like 2 million people there's 2 million less hospitality workers just in the quick service industry. There's 2 million less people from this time last year. So there are a lot of people that are scared. There's a lot of people that are hungry. There's a lot of people that don't know, when this is all going to be over. They're worried about having to be moving or kicked out of their home or whatever. And this is an opportunity to be as compassionate as possible. There's, the Michael Mina's restaurant group, a friend of mine, Patrick Umel is president. They created a whole system where they were trying to figure out a way to give back to their employees, these restaurants that were closed. They want to hold on to their employees, and they're doing things. They're expending their energy to try to create, GoFundMe pages, whatever it is, to take care of these employees. We have an opportunity right now to really learn compassion in a way that, I think this hard driving restaurant hospitality people that just don't understand. As leaders, we need to look around and see what the reality is for our people, and understand that they might be worried more. The people that don't have as much savings, those people that work in restaurants as a second job because they're trying to make ends meet. This is a scary time. So, in my mind, this is also a good time for us to learn. This is a good time for us as leaders to learn.
Yeah, and what's a better time than, I guess, to actually see what's truly important than to have all of the other things that we were attached to and depending on, leaning on, taken away. When you strip things down, and that's the monastic way of living. Let's strip everything down and see what really is true, and see really what I'm made of and what matters to me. And this is such a good opportunity, though it is extremely harrowing. And I'm wondering, what you think people can search for in themselves to help them navigate this. For example, working in the restaurant industry my whole life, I had actually not thought I was capable of anything else for a while. I thought, like, this is it. I'm not, like, technically well trained. You know, I'm university educated, but it's a liberal arts degree, and
A lot of us
um,
liberal arts degree people get into the restaurant industry when we can't find jobs. So,
absolutely. And I turned out to fall in love with it, but like I'd made a commitment that, knowing that there probably wasn't much else I could do like that easily. Like it's a difficult transition out of the restaurant industry. So what could you say, like, we have as, like, assets, like inner assets, having worked in the restaurant industry and cultivated certain skills that maybe we don't think are important, but without asking a leading question, I emphasize intensely are really important. Yeah, what do you think we can do from this point and what we've gathered working in this industry that we no longer can depend on?
um, that's a really good question, and that's something that many people. I've been working with some people that are in between jobs or worried about their jobs or whatever, and there's a ton. I had one. There was one person I knew that he went from working in kitchens as kitchen manager into working in a specialty grocery store, right? Because he knew ingredients. So he was able to do that because guess what? Grocery stores during the pandemic took off. They were looking for people all the time. So there was a natural transition right there from somebody who knows about food going into another food related business. So that's one of the opportunities. So it all kind of depends where your passion is. I truly believe that if something comes up like this in your life and you're not sure if you can count on your industry and you need to make a change, that's a perfect time. Like whatever you want to call it, divine intelligence, God, whatever. They're shifting. It's this opportunity is opening up, and for you to look and explore your own soul and decide where you want to, where can you serve best, where can you bloom best. And so if you're let's say you were a salesperson, you sold catering packages or special events or a server, bartender, and you got good at that. There's so many different sales things. You got to remember, I think a lot of us who are really good in the industry are good because we care, right? The person, the chef that makes that plate perfect, then they care. They care about what's going out to that guest. How many times have we gotten a special order and the cook the back there is making it and then he serves it and he's waiting to hear feedback, like how was that dish, did they like that dish, did they like it this way? They want to know, they want to please people. So here we are in this situation where we can no longer take care of ourselves in the way we thought we were going to take care of ourselves. So let's think, how else do I take care of people? Can I, sell to people what they want? It's not just about sales. I'm not into like crazy just selling for selling's sake. But what is it somebody wants? What's I think lagna means hospitality in Italian. And it's this idea of taking care of other people. Like what is it they actually want? Let's get them what they actually want to make it the most special time. So I think with sales, you can do it with sales. You can kind of transition into sales. If you're really passionate about wine and liqueurs or whatever else, can you make a transition into selling on corporate levels? Can you be a salesperson? Can you be a rep? Um, I think, and if you're a manager, you're a manager. You know how to manage things. So I've gone back and forth. I've been in hospitality restaurants, and then I took that kind of that director of operations from being in a hotel. And hotels, they've lost 2/3 of their occupancy right now across the nation. A lot of those people don't have jobs. I transitioned into working in retreat centers as I was beginning my coaching, and so for me, it was a natural transition. It was something I already had. I had this, meditation thing here, and then I had organizational skills. So all of a sudden, it all kind of came together for me. But I think everybody has that in them if they just, work with a coach, work with a friend, start brainstorming, mind mapping a few ideas, and just explore, see what's out there. I would like to mention also going, speaking about how do you what's the next chapter for some people. And I came up with a program that I've been working with called Refire. And for those people that aren't in the restaurant industry, Refire is when there's a mistake on a dish, and it goes out to the guest, and then the guest says, no, this isn't what I ordered, or I wanted this way, or whatever, and it goes back, and it's called a Refire. It goes to the very front of the line. It gets remade. The chef really checks it out to make sure it's right, and then sends it back to the table. And I kind of use that as an analogy, like what's working, right? Let's find out what is working. What's working in your life? Do you feel like you have meaning in the hospitality industry? Do you have is it just hospitality industry? Is it just the restaurant industry? Or is it like a feeling of service? And then it's a matter of just kind of going through what's working, what's not working. Let's change it. Let's really examine, the results when it comes out again. After you've tried a few different things, let's figure out what it is. And then a lot of times what they can do is it just blooms. It blooms into something bigger than it was before. And I believe that. I believe the restaurants I like the best are the ones I actually had problems with initially, and it's how the recovery was actually the thing that bound me to that restaurant. And just like in real life, if you made just a couple career decisions that you're not happy about, or you're really happy, but now COVID has changed things for you, something more beautiful can come out of that. So it's a matter of mindset and making sure you feel powerful in yourself and know where your strengths are. So that's a program I have with my coaching clients right now. So.
Wow. So that's a one-on-one coaching program, or is it's a downloadable course too, or that?
No, it's just I'm working on a course for it, but right now it's just one-on-one coaching.
Yeah, that speaks to a lot of really like powerful aspects of hospitality, and actually really just recently did an episode on it about service recovery. And it's same with me, that phenomenon of seeing a place falter and then recover well, the emphasis on well, like it has to be a good recovery, and that's what creates a memorable experience. And there's a lot of really interesting psychological aspects to that too. Firstly, it's because I noticed that they can actually handle difficulty well, rather than just going through the usual motions. And I can really trust an organization that can do that. And also because they actually had an opportunity to go off script and give me like an authentic experience, one that wasn't part of the usual protocol. And can they speak to me directly? Can they improve things directly towards my needs, rather than just aimlessly going through another protocol? And I just feel the strongest connection to places that can handle a recovery well.
Yeah, I think handling a recovery. I mean, everybody knows, and that's oftentimes the difference between leadership and management. If you have leaders and you create a staff of leaders, you try and bring everybody up. Management is just like, look, this is how everything works. This is how everything works, and then all of a sudden there's a cog in the machinery that's not quite right, and allowing people to make decisions to make things right, and really allowing people to work from their heart, especially in the service industry, right? Like that's those people want to take care of people, so allowing that to prosper, I think that's that is the number that's what really defines service.
Yeah, and you would actually, I guess, drawn a parallel with life, right? In terms of your life, it's not just about like how you're showing up when things are good, but how are you dealing with the struggles, so to speak.
That's really it, and I think it's about resiliency. And this is one of the beautiful things about practicing mindfulness or meditation. You develop more resiliency. You start, like right now with everything going on with coronavirus, people, you can be safe, you can wear a mask, you can social, you can do what you need to do. You don't have to think that doing those things is really a political statement. And on the other end, you don't want to be so fearful that every single part of the economy shuts down, and it's finding a middle way in there. And I truly believe that if you can find that middle way, that's what creates resiliency. It's being able to see the problem for what it is without kind of operating from your primitive brain of this fear, like, oh, what's going to happen, what's going to happen. What are the facts, and just be open-hearted to what is, rather than what you're creating and all the fear inside that you're creating. Being present to what is right now, what are the situations, and instead of being fearful about what's going to happen a year from now, or what happens if I get COVID, just be careful right now, take care of yourself, do those things. And that it gets back to, if you've got to change jobs or careers, it's not good. Wearing a mask, it's not always easy. Like these things are, they're a pain in the butt, but oftentimes, by making a decision to leave the industry, if that's what you need to do, or kind of going into another similar industry, maybe it'll be better for you in the long run, right? So I truly believe that that's one of those things that practice gives you, that kind of resiliency.
Yeah, and I guess it allows you to be nimble and adaptive to these challenges, and I guess more likely to tap into what you were talking about there of like, okay, rather than just thinking I'm trapped and there's no way out and there's no hope, like what am I fundamentally passionate about? What am I fundamentally capable of doing that I can carry into somewhere else? And a lot of the times, fear will paralyze that, or a view of our own self-worth not being high enough to actually get out of the service industry, or get out of our previous comfortable settings into a new challenge. But I guess this resiliency makes us able to do that. What do you think about this fundamental quality of like care that we develop in the service industry? And a lot of us don't think of it as like a skill, or perhaps something that's useful outside of their particular job. But how can that quality of care be used to be successful doing something else? Maybe not even as directly service or hospitality related.
Uh, that's a really good question, and I believe that the care that we have is, when we come up through the ranks, and most of us started right on the front lines, and, servers, bus boys, whatever, and then we worked our way up, and to appreciate the idea that we've learned service, we've learned how to take care of other people. If we've been successful in our eh, current industry, then being able to take that and learn and there's a certain level of humbleness too, right? We get an opportunity to take care of people. That's not something that, not everybody gets to take care of people. Some people, their job is to, make sure people know what the rules are. But then in the service industry, we're there to perform a service. We're there to make somebody's lives better. And it's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity for individuals too. If you can be in the industry, it's a great, or any service industry, it's being able to take care of people. And it's really, it's the difference between vulnerability. Oh, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I'm sorry, my company made a mistake in the call center, whatever, versus defending the ego. Well, you didn't read the menu. You didn't read the fine print on your cell phone contract, right? Like, you don't, if you actually are good at what you do and you can make people feel good about decisions that they made, or about their company, or about their experience, then I think that can translate into anything. That can translate, like, how do you, one thing that I used is, I know how to take care of people in a restaurant. I know how to go around and take care of people. I know how to, watch for people rubbernecking or whatever's going on. And so when I came back into my personal life and I actually wanted to be a better person, I would do that. The eyes give it away. When people are sitting at a table and they're staring at their food and they're eating it and they're talking, they're happy. And if they're not, and they're kind of picking at their food, there's a little challenge. And what we've learned in the hospitality industry is, we can take care of other people. We know when somebody needs something. And these are skills that we actually got paid to develop, personal development, when we're actually getting paid for it in our industry. So I think I think that was a really good question. And I think we have a ton of opportunities because we've learned to be a little more empathetic or understanding.
Yeah, and I also think that's a really valuable waypoint for people that are not even like frontline service, so to speak, and maybe think they're not like carrying as much of an opportunity to serve. Because when I started out, I started as a busser too, right? Like that's what we
Yeah.
do, and I did move up from that, and I especially I think got to move up from that fortunately, uh, because I was serving still. I was serving the people I was working with. I was supporting the service staff. But I was doing so resentfully in the beginning because I really wanted to be like a server, and I, and that's where service happened. But it was actually in the moments where I didn't feel the need to actually have the more glamorous role of being customer facing that I was most valuable to the collective, because I was able to humbly serve the servers, and uh, and that's what allowed me to be considered like actually ready to serve customers, because I could serve my coworkers.
I think, and how do we promote managers? We see the server that is helping all the other servers, right? It is about service. And unfortunately, sometimes people become managers and they kind of forget what their role is. Their role isn't to be a police person so much as to be supportive of the staff. But that cycle you talked about, there is a little resentment, like, oh, why am I the busser? I can be a better server, and then why am I a server? I'm better than that manager. Wayne Dyer talked about this whole idea of, you start off your life like wanting to achieve. You're very achievement task based. You want to get the awards and the accolades and the positions and the cars, and then there's a shift that goes on in people's lives when you realize that the next evolution is being of service, right? Like what's the purpose of getting a bunch of money and holding on to a bunch of money if you can't do good? What's a purpose of doing anything if you can't do something for somebody else? If you're not doing something for somebody else in your life, you're wasting your life. It's a precious human existence, and it doesn't matter whether you're a spiritual person or a non-spiritual person. Taking care of other people is really key to success, and that's something in the service industry I think we learn very quickly, very quickly.
Yeah, well, we learn then we forget, right? And I've done plenty of forgetting of that along the path of success and moving up in status, because I think there's also this conditioning as a service professional where it's like I need to move up and be a manager, otherwise I am lowly and people are going to look down on
Right.
me. And so, but then if I were to get successful, and it always happens with successful people in actually any industry, if I were to be like a Silicon Valley genius and have a successful company and make millions and billions of dollars, what happens to a lot of these people? They realize, like, oh, all of that is actually not going to give me true fulfillment. I need to serve. And then they find simple ways of serving. And so I'm always thinking about, like, how can we capture that mindset now? The mindset that happens on the other side of achievement, without having to go through that whole like grind of achieve, 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 realize emptiness, fall back to service. Do you have any ways of like capturing that mindset now without needing to first move up the ladder and have realizations?
It's about studying and learning about from other people, because right now we kind of operate in this, time thing where we start off young and we want things, and then we move forward, and then we discover that what we wanted wasn't exactly all it's cracked up to be. And when you think about it, it doesn't matter. Danny Myers, he restaurant guru. He's got tons of restaurants. If somebody has a bad experience in his restaurant, right, and he's there and he's doing something, he's no longer this guru, this wonderful. He is really just there. He's a glorified server. If he walks by and somebody says something to him, he's going to take that dish away. He's going to try and remedy that situation. And it is a humbleness. It is a matter of being of service to those people. So if people, if our listeners can understand that, if they can understand that everything's not always all cracked up to what it is, being of service is important at whatever level you are in. The more you are of service, the more you're going to be admired by your peers, trusted by your friends. It doesn't matter whether it's in the workplace. It doesn't matter what. We can just look back through history, and when what happens, people get older. They've been making money. They've been doing whatever, and they change when they get older, and they start giving away their money, and they start, philanthropy becomes big, and why can't we do that now? Why we don't need to wait. We don't need to wait. I mean, of course, it's a matter of degrees. We might not be able to give away millions like Bill Gates, but at the same time, can we give our time? And I feel strongly as an aspiring B Corp, business, that giving, is giving is paramount to happiness. It's going to make the world just more peaceful. It's going to make your neighborhood better. It's going to make your family better. And it doesn't have to be money. It can be time. It can be service. And no matter what, if you have yourself, and this is really important, if you have yourself and like you're strong, if you know even if you lost your job, what can you do? You can go around, you can open up doors for people with packages, you can help rake the neighbor's leaves. You still have personal power. If you know you have something to give, you still have personal power. But if you're going to sit back and say, "Oh, COVID did this, and I don't have money, and I can't do this," and that Clifton, he's talking about giving and giving. No, you can do something. There's some food bank you can go help with. There's something you can do. If you're living and you're alive, there's an opportunity to be there for someone else. You can listen. You can look at your kids in the eye when they're talking to you and they're telling you some story that's going on forever. And you're just like, look at, I'm going to spend 10 minutes listening to this story, or your spouse comes home and talks about stuff. This is another way that you give. And when you give like that, I think what ends up happening is the universe gives back. And as I always like to say that I've always eaten really well in my life, and my wife makes beautiful dinners every single night, and I've always thought that was my karma from feeding people my whole life, so professionally. So I believe in that. I believe what comes around goes around.
Absolutely. And at least, at the very least, if someone doesn't believe that, they could say, like, at least creates this pattern of being and this pattern of behavior. Another Buddhist principle, I guess, right? Whatever you do, you start to do by nature, and also creates a relationship with people that is richer because you're of value to everyone. They'll value you, and this whole critical mass of abundance starts to occur.
Absolutely. I believe in that. I believe that things can happen. Like, if you go back 40 years ago and you said, "Hey, we're going to come up, there's going to be a brand new great industry I want you to invest in," and you're like, "What is it? Oil? Is it, gas? Is it energy? Is it automobiles?" No, it's this thing called the computer, and it's going to be the internet, and it's a brand new industry that is created wealth and abundance for a ton of people. So these things can happen, people, whatever, Bitcoin was nothing. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of people who had, there was basically nothing. They're actually millionaires because they invested in something that wasn't even an industry and is very hard for people to understand. So, in a way, it's kind of like you just don't know where your next opportunity is going to come from. But by relating to people and being social and taking care of other people, you really put yourself, up towards the front of the line when these opportunities come, I think, in a divine way, if not in a more practical way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Start planting those seeds and out there in the world.
Uh,
Fantastic. Wow. We can keep going with this. I think that was a really good mic drop moment now. And I could probably now refer to, if you want to talk about that, you were saying, speaking of giving and being of service, you wanted to be of service to this community and offer coaching or some services to people that are struggling in this industry.
yes, absolutely. So, um, you know, I get on these podcasts, people say, "Well, do you have anything to give away? Do you have any?" And it's like, I don't, but I want to do something. And I thought this might be a perfect opportunity to share with your listeners. Because some of your listeners, they are in the service industry, and service industry has been hit probably hardest with COVID. So what I would like to do is make myself available. If I'll tell the listeners, if you believe that coaching would help you, if you believe that coaching could fundamentally make your life better, and through coaching you'd actually be of service to more people, I would like to offer coaching packages for either free or a nominal donation of some sort. Um, I want to offer this to I can't afford to do it to a lot of people, but I could afford right now. I have a couple of guys on my team right now who can also help. So if your listeners, if it resonates that you're like, look, I would love to do a program. I would love to do a 3 month program, and I'm serious and I'm committed, then send me an email, reference a show, explain why you think you'd be a good candidate, and I will contact you. We'll interview each other to see if it's a good fit or not, and it'll be a standard package. It won't be kind of watered down. The times of the calls might be limited, only, you know, whatever happens, that's the only limitation. But I want to be there for people, and I want to be able to take people. Like, I know there's people struggling right now, and I hope there's somebody listening to this thinking, yeah, well, this would work. I want to work. I want to do this. I want to get out there. I'm in a funk or something. I just need to get past this hurdle. I would love to be able to offer that some free coaching packages.
Fantastic. Well, what a wonderful, generous offer. And I'm sure there's people listening that are potentially struggling, maybe thinking they aren't, um, I guess, cut out for success or just not in a good place. That all they need is the right opportunity, and you're perhaps that right opportunity, or at least an expert steward that's going to make them realize what an opportunity they have for success. So that's such a valuable thing. If you've never had coaching done, I've had coaching done, and it's really, really powerful. And especially from an expert level mindful leadership coach like Clifton. So it's really a wonderful experience to realize your own wisdom and your own capability that's already there. That's what an expert coach does,
Yes.
in really sneaky ways.
That's it. I mean, the idea is people don't always see their own divinity or their own expertise, their own Buddha nature, their own Christ consciousness, whatever that is. Everybody has it in them. And so the idea is if you have a good coach, you can bring this out and you can show people you're a mirror. And I think that's a beauty of being a coach, being able to show that mirror.
Beautiful. All right. Well, I really enjoyed our conversation. I was so looking forward to it and so glad we had a chance to handle these really, really important topics in this very difficult time for so many in the service industry. So yeah, I really do think you're going to be a wonderful beacon of support for such people. So thanks so much for coming on the show, Clifton. Is there anything else you'd like to leave anyone with? Any final guidance or words?
Believe things can change. Always believe things can change for the better. Things are changing for the better. And I would just like everybody to know that, if you want to chat, if you heard something that resonated with you and you want to chat about something, feel free, reach out to me, and don't give up hope. And this is kind of a trying time. Don't give up hope. Just, there's hope on the horizon. Vaccines coming, things are changing. Restaurant industry is going to take off again. Service industries are going to take off. Economy is going to get better, and do it that way. And thank you so much for allowing me to be on your program. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Ever since we started chatting about mindfulness and the service industry a while back, it's always been a pleasure. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Pleasure's mine. There aren't enough people talking about service and leadership in the way that you are. So it always is such a gift to have those conversations, and so glad I can share one of those with everyone in this Serve Conscious community. So thank you again. In the show notes, we will leave all of that information for everyone to reach out to you, explore your work more, and grab that free or donation-based coaching package, which I really encourage you to do. So thank you again, Clifton. Really wonderful chatting with you. You have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you very much.